Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Emerging Brands podcast with Kelly Bennett. I am so happy to say, Brandon, I forgot to tell you this before I hit record. This is the last episode I'm recording of 2024. And yeah, so Brandon Milbradt is here. She is the founder of Eat Gold Organics. And I feel like you're a really great way to close out the year because you are very genuine in who you are, what you're building. Like you were just saying, you're a mom with two kids building a business. And to be honest with you, those are the stories I love the most because they are the most relatable. This whole podcast was created so that other early stage emerging CPG founders could find solace in other people's stories so they don't feel alone and kind of like out on an island by themselves. They could hear tips and advice in real life of what it's like building a brand. So, Brandon, I'm so glad you're here today on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. This is such an honor. I
Awesome.
hope to, I'll do my best. I'll
You'll
do my
do an awesome job. We'll do an awesome job. So, I always like to kick off the podcast hearing people's backstories. Personally, always find that so interesting. Everyone has their own path and unique story. So, before we get into the story of Eat Gold Organics, I would love to hear what was your life career prior to becoming a CPG founder?
Well, my education actually, it's funny, I haven't thought about this in so long. My education was in design and marketing, but
Okay.
that was in a completely different era. But I'm from a very small town in Canada, and it was the only university in Canada that offered this program. And so I went and I flew across the country at 17 and I did it. And so I just have always had this entrepreneurial spirit because it was in design, fashion design and business, and they didn't ever want us to just be designers. That was something that they really, God, I haven't thought about this in so long. That's something that was really important to the curriculum, that they wanted us to not only be able to design, they wanted us to run our own businesses. So spreadsheets and just your costs and just going out there and also trying to promote. It was all part of it. And so God, that's my early beginnings. And then I pivoted into film and television. It was a natural. I started as a costume designer, and then I became. I realized I want to run this show. This is perfect for me. I love the business
That's
of film and
cool.
television. I love combining stories and connecting with an audience, and so that was my career for over a decade, almost 2 decades of film and television. Yeah.
That's really cool. So you went from design, learning about business as well, costume design, to then film and television. What was your role within film and television?
So the first film that I was involved in, I was the costume designer because of my background.
Right.
And I took a look around and said, oh no, I've got this. So my next, I don't know, my next adventure into filmmaking was as a producer. I was executive producing, writing, creating the whole show. Can you hear my baby
That's
feeling? I'm sorry.
no, no, no. Don't be sorry. That's so cool. That is
Yeah, it
so
was.
cool.
I
So you did that for almost 2 decades.
Yes.
Okay. So then now you're a founder of a really cool chocolate company and doing really fun things in the space. So I definitely see the element of your brand and marketing background within the concept. But how did you go from film, television, movies to CPG, Eat Gold Organics? What was that bridge? I'm
You
so
know,
curious.
watching you ask that question and animate it so much, I don't know. I'm crazy. Like it was a crazy pivot, but it was my life. What happened was life.
Mm,
And I haven't even thought about this in a long time because one thing I will say about running a CPG company is that you're just constantly moving. You don't even think about how did I get to this spot? But this is a lovely opportunity to reflect. And I think also as a founder, and that's why I was so excited to speak with you, because you're an expert and I'm not an expert in branding and CPG. And I would love your feedback, because what happens is you try, I am answering your question. It's just, you try and hone your story,
Right.
because sometimes your personal experience can be too dark. I've had interviews before where, you start talking about it. I did a live, and I start talking about the reasons of why I pivoted, and it can be quite dark, with people experience death and trauma, and my I would say segue into plant medicine was because of those reasons and because of the
Mm.
traumas. And so you try and, hone your story a little bit so it's a little more palatable, but
Right.
nonetheless, life happens. And my mother died in a very tragic way. And then my father subsequently, because of that, developed cancer.
Mm.
And so I was always investigating plant medicine, adaptogens, mushrooms, ayahuasca, psychedelics, all of it, from legal and otherwise.
Right.
How can this benefit my life, and how can it benefit the lives of my family? How can I heal from trauma faster? This world, I don't have 20 years, to do therapy. I think therapy is great, but so it was really sort of a journey up until the point I had my first baby, and I struggled with breast milk production. And I thought, oh my God, what is this? And I spoke to friends, and they gave me traditional herbal remedies. I have a friend from the Philippines, and she said her mother would boil moringa leaves and it tripled her milk supply. So I was making these smoothies every morning, and it was like sludge, and I was combining all these things. And at the same time, I was indulging in my favorite chocolate. And I thought, why am I not combining this together? This is crazy. It was the middle of a pandemic. My industry was shut down completely. Anything in
Right.
the experiential world was shut down. And I'm an entrepreneur. I love to work. I love to do. I love to create. And it all came together. I looked around, and I saw my baby's toys and the colors. And you can see their artwork behind me is always inspiring me. And I grabbed a few
So
bar.
gorgeous.
All of the, so New Mama, I didn't even mean to do this, but this was my first bar. And it really came from a place of love. And I thought, I want to create a world for myself where I can take my kids to school every day, drop them off, be my own boss. And even when you're in film and television and you're the boss on set, you have executives, you have other people controlling the timeline, all this stuff when you're not indie anymore. And I scaled up. And so I just wanted to take my life back into my own hands. And that was the pivot. It was really born in my kitchen, and making, talking to shamans, experiencing plant medicine for myself. It was, alchemists, herbalists. I've been up into the lands of Indigenous people up in Canada, and making friends, and seeing how they live, and really just trying to work it out to be something that I can be proud of. And that's how Equaled was born.
So interesting. So, what was the beginning of making something that hasn't been to market? Like, what were some of the key differentiators that you really wanted to hone in on?
Well, for better or worse, there was no organic adaptogen nootropic infused chocolate that I could find that wasn't over $20-30 perhaps, at Air One.
Right.
And during that period of the pandemic, I sort of saw this glaring exclusivity. Health and wellness was becoming even more important, but I just found it could be alienating, and it was excluding. I came from a small town. I didn't grow up with money. I just always thought about my dad going into the supermarket. Is he going to try an $18 chocolate bar, or is he going to try a $10 chocolate bar? And price point was really everything for me. And when I say better or worse, I really mean that, because everyone who looks at my books, who looks at my vision boards, they're no, you have to, my prices are all wrong. But I just feel I really double down on it. I really feel like the more I sell, the better it will get. And so I really wanted to focus on creating a product that was a bridge for people who had never heard about adaptogens before. And it's in delicious chocolate, which is something that we all want to indulge in anyway. And so I wanted to use my sense of humor as well and bring a product to market that really was my authentic self. And the older I get, the wiser I get, I really believe that if I put myself, my authentic self into everything, it's going to be okay. At least at the end of the day, I'm enjoying what I do. I mean, I cannot tell you, not one person wanted me to call my best-selling bar Big Orgasm, the one for doing it. It just, I have
And
so
that's the
many
one I think that
problems.
caught my eye. I'm like, who is this person?
I
They
know
are
where.
really putting it all out there. And I love a good brand differentiator and like making yourself stand out in the market. Right.
Honestly, thank you. I love, that's my sense of humor. I would have even gone farther. And I did. I took off "It's effing delicious" off the front of it, but it was COVID. It was like, what is happening? The world's falling
Right.
apart. It's effing delicious. This is my humor. This is how I talk. That's how I want to. But then I thought, there were a few, I've made subtle changes in my branding. Someone said, I don't even know what it is. And it looks like a book. And so I put a chocolate bar on the front of it. So these are the things, the mistakes that I've made. I used to do flea markets, and people come up to me and they're like, oh, these look like they should be in Urban Outfitters. What are these? What are they? They didn't even know. So it's a bonus that it, catches people's eye and attention. And that's what I want, because I want to bring adaptogens, plant medicine, just all this knowledge in a digestible way to people. But also, I cannot do a Google ad. I cannot do a meta ad. I cannot boost anything that has the word orgasm.
Right.
Or anything that says mood, even if you say it's supporting, like there's all this pushback. And so, yeah, I hit these roadblocks, every day.
But that's interesting that your packaging, as far as strategy, is really out there because you really can't lean on, say, paid ad or there's some censorship. So the fact that your packaging is really bold and really puts it out there, I think that's really smart to make it stand out when people are in retail where they're most likely to discover you.
Exactly.
I
Thank you
love
for
that.
because I could use that. I definitely I'm analog. I'm very analog. I love typewriters. I love old-fashioned phone calls. And so sometimes I worry that I love a good collage, that may not be on brand for me. I work before we get off this topic, I really do want to talk about the person who's responsible for this. I would be
Yes,
nowhere.
please.
So, but just to finish that point, I will say that I'm really responding to old-fashioned advertising, wheat pastings,
Hmm.
just billboards, bus shelters might be what's right for my brand. And you're catching me at this moment where I've scaled wholesale. I'm in over 200 stores across America.
Amazing.
I have two distributors. I'm with KeHE. I won that golden ticket. It took me a long time. I read, something that I feel like I'm relatable because I'm a single mom with two kids and it's so hard. And someone asked me the other day, what's it like having this business? And I said, it's like climbing Mount Everest with like two babies under you have like, you're just doing it. There's no time. But anyway, I want to talk about the person responsible for my branding, because I wasn't able to raise money because that's not my personality. And that has held me back. So I've bootstrapped the whole way. But I do have social capital. And because I worked in film and television, I have met incredible people. And so Paul Ritter, and I hope you have show notes. I don't know.
Yes, we could tag him. Yep.
I have to, because he took so I sent this collage of kids' toys, rainbow, bright colors, that whole vibe, that Waldorf vibe, and I, mocked it up, rough. I mean, super rough. And he came back with these are, I mean, look at this. Like,
They're beautiful.
yeah, this is all Paul. And he studied at Parsons. He was the creative director on the Benetton's Colors magazine. He was
Wow.
the creative director of Virgin Records in France. Like, and I met him when he was doing a rebrand at Condé Nast for Glamour, and he had just done a rebrand for Elle, and I had done a small contract. That's why, I hear my mom all the time. She says things like, "You just be kind. You never know like where your world will find you." And he comes from my past. He's not from CPG. He's not from chocolate. He's not from this
Right.
world. He's my dearest friend, and he has created this unbelievable branding, all the packaging. It's really his vision come to life. And I'm just so grateful every day that I had that connection. So yeah.
And you made a really great point of, when you're putting yourself out there as a founder in a totally different space where many of the founders I have interviewed, I've done close to now over 100 episodes of this podcast, primarily CPG founders. Many of them did not come from the CPG space. Most of them came from other careers. One recently was a musician on Broadway during COVID, started an olive oil line. So I personally love all these transitions, especially from entertainment to CPG. But it's really such a shift, and I love how you use the term social capital because I think for many when they're like, "I don't know how to ask for money. I don't know how to fundraise." And it's totally fine, but what you're talking to is really leveraging the community, the people who can support you early on, and just seeing what talents you could pool to have a concept, to show that you have a viable product. To then, I mean, your story's awesome that you're now in over 200 retailers across the United States. That speaks to, I would say, a lot of hustle and grit and entrepreneurship to do that. And you did it bootstrapping, which now you have full control over your brand as well, which is also really smart to do in the early days, right? Each brand is a bit different and more nuanced of what capital is needed when, but that's a really fair and honest way of building a brand. So I'm really
Yeah.
glad you touched on that because I think we could sometimes over romanticize raising funds in order to have like a real legit CPG brand. And that's not true. So thank you for sharing that piece. I really, really appreciate it.
Oh my God, the bootstrapping. Every penny that I make, I dedicate to growth. And it means that we sometimes have to go without in certain ways, but it's really like my girls come to the post office sometimes twice a day with me to ship. I packed with my own hands last year 10,000 boxes.
Wow.
I don't even know how because I take my girls to school every day. I pick them up. I have 3 hours if anything gets derailed, and I sometimes need ice packs depending on where it goes. So I can't pack them up at night while they're sleeping. I have to do it's been such a crazy, crazy adventure, but I think they'll always remember it. And I get venture capitalists calling me. They
Mhm.
see my branding, they see me in Air One, they say, okay, well, as soon as you hit 1 million in sales, okay, sure, 1 million in
Right.
sales, like no problem. Then there is, so you really do have to take a little bit of time to bootstrap, I think. But also, I'm really terrible at raising funds when I should. And I can see that it could have helped me along the way at certain points, but also what you just said really means a lot to me because now I do own 100%. And
Right.
it was a really challenging, crunchy time. And I can see the benefit now of that.
Yeah, everyone's story is different. And there's some people that because they bootstrap, they have full control and can feel like they're more intentional with finding the right partners for that next stage of growth versus taking money too soon. And now they have to follow someone else's lead on something that is their genuine dream and vision. I've heard those stories also
It's both,
a
because I
lot.
do think it would have been easier at many states. I don't
Sure.
know if
Oh.
you can hear my 4-year-old screaming. I'm right here, honey, if you need anything. This She stayed home from school today because she's not feeling well. 'Tis the
Oh.
season.
Yes.
But I will say I do, I've made, I have friends who are in this, and honestly, just sending a text sometimes has really helped me, and I hope that I can help people, and just being there and listening to each other is really helpful.
So now that you're in 200 plus retail
Yeah.
stores, which is amazing, what piece of advice would you share with that early stage founder? Like maybe someone like yourself who's in the kitchen and is like, I have this kind of crazy idea. It's totally different than what I'm doing now. I'm also a parent, or like whatever circumstance there is. What advice would you share with that founder?
I would say that oh, this is a tough one. I would say that it's okay to not make money right away. I really think that, people, it's okay to be on Fair and for them to take a commission. It's okay to be on Air Goods. It's okay. Oh, here we go. It's okay. I will, honey. Okay, I'll be right there.
So cute.
um, it's okay. I think that, when I was in, I take that back. I'm gonna even go back further. When I was in my kitchen, I think that what I would have benefited from is making more cold calls and calling people and saying, I have this dream. Where do I get started? And skipping, I have a personality who, oh, I'm not going to ask questions. I'm going to figure it out. And I think that was to my detriment. I don't think that's a introvert, not believing in myself, inauthentic space that I was in. And I feel like the moment I read this book, and Bethany Frankel, do you know
Mhm.
Bethany Frankel? I don't watch the Housewives. I don't watch, and I love podcasts. I love listening to audiobook. And I was listening to this, and it wasn't all for me. Not necessarily, that book wasn't for me, but I remember at the time I finished the book and I thought, what would Bethany do right now? Because I'm sitting on my couch, I'm too scared to make a cold call. And that's when I reached out on LinkedIn to the CEO of KeHE, and I got a response in 3 minutes. And that's how I got into KeHE.
Wow.
That's how I wrote a message to, I started finding the CEO of American Express. I started to just take bold moves. And I heard this one phrase that said imperfect action. And it's actually a podcast that I started listening to. And again, it's not all for me because it's not CPG. But once I started, and I'm going to paraphrase the host. Once I started taking imperfect action, everything started happening for me. And that would be the biggest, that's a roundabout way of getting to that. But I had to remember that being how dark it was, in the beginning and starting. And I was worried so much of every move that I made being perfect, my branding being perfect, my packaging
Mm,
perfect. And I learned that you don't have to. You can change your package. It's okay. It's
right.
like finding an apartment. Oh my God, what if it's not? It's like, then move. You can break your lease or just live there for a year. It's like you don't have to do everything out of the gate. And I moved to LA and I walked into Air One and I saw French Squirrel. Do you know that brand?
Yes,
French
yes, yes,
Squirrel?
yes.
I love her. She's helped me so much, Sydney. And she started out with different packaging. It was this clear sort of cellophane packaging. It wasn't her dream, but look at her now.
Yeah, she's
You know,
crushing it.
she's
Yeah.
crushing it. And, I just think, oh, I didn't have to have the perfect box right away. I didn't have to have and that's it. That would be it's just imperfect. Just imperfect action moves you forward.
And you spoke to something that I know many founders feel. I've felt at times where it's like you're almost negotiating with yourself to
Yeah,
take that next step. And you're like, no, that won't work out because of XYZ. Right. And it's kind of like this weird negotiation that we do with ourselves. But what you're saying of like, you sent to LinkedIn, you were sitting on the couch. It's kind of like, okay, let me just, maybe they will never write back, whatever, but at least I'm putting something out there. And then to
yes,
get a response so quickly, it's like also building up that muscle because you start getting some traction and momentum. And I think then you don't have as much energy and time, literally time to overthink it. You have to take action on it to move forward because you have stuff coming in. So
absolutely.
I thank you again for sharing that because I think that's a huge hurdle for so many founders. And I think what you just shared is such a great tangible example of like, just send the DM, send the message, say the hi, and you genuinely don't know what could happen from there.
Absolutely. I'm doing this podcast and I think I booked 9 months out.
You did. You did.
I was thinking by then I'll feel comfortable talking about my company. And I didn't. I don't, but I'm doing it. And I've already, we're gonna finish up and I'm gonna think about all the silly things that I said. But it's okay. It's okay. I want to add something because I do think it's important that these are relatable. I didn't get into Air One the first time I tried.
Okay.
Want to say that. I didn't. They didn't have enough space, and now it's working out really well, but I didn't. And so when you get that, I almost stopped. I was like, oh my God, well, if they don't want it, and I didn't do anything for 3 months. And then suddenly in a dream, why don't I just apply again? And I did. And it really helped. So I had a baby on the boob the whole way, I mean, it was rough. But
But
here
these
we
are the
are.
stories I love, truly. I
Your
adore stories
podcast.
like yours.
Thank you for your podcast. I just joined Naturally LA because of you and because of your
Really?
I didn't even know about them because I'm in my bubble, working,
Right.
surviving and not thriving. And so I listened to the most recent and that really was game changing for me. Thank you.
I'm
Thank you.
so
Thank
happy to
you.
hear that because again, how I kicked off the beginning of this, it could be really lonely becoming a founder and putting yourself out there, and then you have to live your life. You know what I mean? At the same time. So,
What?
really, I wanted this podcast to be something a founder could like put in their, iPod and like, I don't know if we even use iPods anymore, but you know what I mean? Like, throw it in,
Maybe.
take a walk when they're commuting or cooking, and just be like, okay, that was a litl bit of a kick in the pants or like I needed that reminder to keep going and keep doing it. So that makes me so happy that
Yeah.
you had that experience even before coming on the
And I
show
took
because
action.
that's amazing. And I could totally seeing you in that vibe. That's like the
Oh,
perfect community for you.
it is. And I can't believe I didn't discover it before. And I'm so grateful for you.
Amazing. Amazing. Last question. I know I have to let you go. Where can people buy, eat gold organics?
Eat Gold on my website, eatgoldorganics.com. And then if you're a store and you're carrying things, obviously I'm on Fair and Air Goods. And I have on my website, it's hard to keep it up to date, especially during holiday season when new stores find me, but I do have a locator. I always recommend if you have a store near you, it's always nice to go and support your local boutique or convenience store. I know they call it something cooler now, but yeah, I that's it.
Specialty retailer,
Yes, thank
specialty
you. You of course would
okay.
know the answer to that. And
Well, I'm a
yeah,
nerd for all specialty retailers and grocery stores. Like that's what I do on my free time. So I'll definitely look up and add in the show notes some of my favorites that you're at. So thank you so much. You're
thank
doing it
you.
all literally with a little one at home today, and you're doing amazing. Thank you for sharing your story. I know this will help probably someone who's sitting on the couch dreaming the dream, and they're like, okay, I'm just going to send that message. And so
Absolutely. And send your
I really
message to me.
appreciate it.
I love it. I love if I
Love
can't
that.
help, I can't, but if I can, I don't know all the answers, but even if a sounding board, I just love this community. So thank you for being my very first podcast. This was a
You did
total
amazing.
honor. Thank you.
You did amazing. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening, and I'll see you next year.
Happy holidays.
Bye.